Okay guys, so I screwed up. So the last few episodes, actually the last two episodes, were about registering users, existing users and so on. So in the meantime, I realized that this approach, which we did in those two episodes, is not very good because it's not secure. So I'm going to delete those two videos. They're showing on my site right now, but once this video is uploaded, I'm going to delete them and also delete them from YouTube. So you can get a look actually of this episode in which we are going to register and log in our users, but the right way. So we are going to use something called JWT, and we are going to make a real authentication possible on our site, because I think the method that I used before was not actually secure. So I'm sorry for wasting your time with those two episodes. Well, actually you could have learned some things along the way if you watched them. If you didn't, it doesn't matter. We are going to do it all over again. So from the episode 16. And I'm going to show you how to log in and register your users the right way and more secure way. As I said, once again, I'm sorry for wasting your time with the previous two episodes, but I'm going to try to make it right in this one. Okay, so now we have this. Let's choose New York, pickup time, and drop-off time is going to be the day after, and then we filter our vehicles. We go to mode details, and now what we want to do is actually have some checkout process going. First of all, we are going to add a button right here, which is going to say something like continue, and we are going to go to another page, and on that page we are going to have a register and login form. So register form for new users and login form if the existing user is coming to our page. For this to work, you of course need to install the users plugin in October backend. So in your October backend, you would just go to settings, updates and plugins, install plugins, and search for user plugin. As you can see, I already have it installed. So just install that, and you don't have to do anything with it, just leave it as is. Okay. So in our code editor, we are going to go to app, src, views, and in views, we are going to create a new view, which is going to be called reservation. That view, of course. You just create a template right here. Template and add a div, just so we can see if it works. Add a div. And that's about it. We are of course going to add some styling right here, HTML and so on, but for now this is enough. And the next thing we need to do, we need to create a route to that view. So we just go to route, router.js. We are going to copy this vehicles path or route and call this reservation. And then this is going to be called reservation. So we are giving a name to our route. And it's going to be called from views reservation.view. Okay, save this. Next thing I want to do, I want to go to the vehicle details page and add a button right here. So a lot of code I'm just going to copy and paste right here so that we don't waste any time. It's pretty self-explanatory. And we already did something like this before, so no need to go through it again. So we just added the router link. That router link has some classes. The name is going to be reservation. So we are linking to the route that has a name of reservation. And we are not going to say make reservation, but continue. Continue, save this, and let's check our application right now. As you can see, now we have this continue button right here, and if I click it, we are going to the reservation form. So this is where we are going to be doing most of our work today. So in now reservation.view file, I'm just going to paste a lot of HTML and CSS, actually CSS classes. Of course, you can get all of this code from GitHub. The link will be in the description below, so you don't have to write it yourself. What we have here is just a title. Then we have a form and in that form we are saying submit prevent. So when somebody clicks submit button, it's going to prevent the reload of the page, and we are calling the method called register users, which we are going to be creating right now. And then these are just input fields. So let's see how this looks in our browser. Right, so we have name, surname, email, password, and password confirmation because we want to register our user. As you can see, we are getting a lot of errors right here because we didn't define the view part of that page and we didn't define our data. So let's go to our code editor and let me just show you what is important here. So we have a name, that's a label, and then we have an input field, and the important thing here, the most important one, is this vModel for name, and every field has it. So this has vModel for surname, and this has vModel for email, and so on. So this is the way that we are going to get the data from our form and then send it to our API and register our users. The same thing is true for password, password confirmation, and so on. Okay, so now we have our HTML set up, we have our form. The next thing we need to do, we need to do some Vue stuff to send that data to our server and actually register our user. So right here we do script, export default, and now we want to define our data. So the most of the errors that we are getting in our console is because we didn't define the data that we are defining right here. So password confirmation, name, surname, and so on. So we need to define those, and I'm just going to copy that out because we did this a million times already. So we don't need this for now. Okay, so we are just defining our data. So name, surname, username, email, password, and so on. Next thing we need to do, we need to define our methods. As you can see at the beginning of our form, we have this register user method. So we are going to define that. Okay, so now we have a register user method, and then we want to send the data that we get from our form to our store, and we are going to, of course, use Axios to communicate with our API. But before that, we need to do something like this. So const user is going to be a new URL search params. This is the way that we need to do it because Axios has some problems if we just send them those names, usernames, and so on. I don't think we even need this username right here because we don't have it in the form. So what you need to do right now is do something like user.append, and then you would do name, and the name is going to be this dot name. So this dot name refers to this right here. So this input field is going to give us the name of our user. Okay, so I'm not going to write everything of this out. I'm just going to paste this in. So you do that for every field that you need, and we don't need this field username, because our users are going to get registered and logged in by email, not by username. Okay, and the next thing we need to do, we need to dispatch all of that data to our store. So to do that, you would just do this store dispatch, and then we are going to create a method in our store which is also going to be called register user, and we are sending the user. So we are sending this right here to which we appended the name, surname, email, password, and password confirmation. Great. Okay, save this, and now we need to go to our store and actually create that method. So in our store we are going to create a new method which is going to be called register user. So we are receiving a user data from it, and then we are going to post to some API endpoint. We are going to post that user to some API endpoint, and we are going to do it like Axios post post, and then we define our URL, which is going to be Vue rent-a-car localhost, and then we are going to add API auth register. Now, how did I get to this endpoint? We didn't create it, and we are not going to create it. I'm just going to explain this to you just a little bit later when we finish our code. So, user, then we want to wait for a response, and then we just want to console log out that response. Okay, save this. Now, this is not going to work because we don't have this route set up, and we are not going to set it up by hand, but we are actually going to install a plugin which is going to be called JWTAuth, and I'm going to explain to you what that is right now. So first of all, what is JWT? So JWT stands for JSON Web Tokens, and this is an open industry standard method for representing claims securely between two parties. So this is some sort of our authentication protocol that we are going to be using for registering and logging in our users, because it's much more secure than just doing the way that we did it in the previous 2 episodes, which are now deleted. Okay, so I'm not going to go into it. You can of course read about it, but let's just say it's much more secure way for logging in your users. So to use it, October comes with, actually doesn't come with, but it has plugins for that. So it has this JWTAuth plugin, which we are going to be using in this episode. There are actually 2 plugins like this for October. I just chose this one, but I think the other ones works just fine. This is the documentation of the plugin which we are going to refer, but first of all, let's just install it. So JWT, and we are looking for this one. So we are going to install that. And if we go to our documentation, as you can see, the first thing you need to do is go to settings, users, and then to JWTAuth, and set your secret token, so that the October or that plugin can use that token to generate encrypted data. Okay, so we go to users. One more thing I forgot to mention. So this plugin actually depends on the user plugin. As you can see, the following plugin is required. So you need to have the user plugin for this to work. And we already have it installed, of course. So if we go to our documentation, it says settings users JWTAuth. If we go right here, so users JWTAuth, and you need to change this secret key. So let's just call it my new secret key. Okay. And I don't think we need to do anything in here. You can of course check out the settings and set them up the way you want. So for now, I'm just going to save this. We set up our new key, and since we installed this plugin, we automatically get this API endpoint. So API auth register, and you actually get few more endpoints if you check out the documentation. So you have an endpoint for login, which we are going to be using in just a second. Then you have the API endpoint for registering, then for account activation if you want to use that, for forgetting password, resetting the password, refreshing the token, and so on. So as you can see, you get all of these endpoints for free, and we are going to use this endpoint which is going to be register, and as you can see, it's expecting some parameters. So it's not expecting a username, but it is expecting at least email and password. As you can see, those 2 are required. But we are going to also send the name, surname, and password confirmation. Name and surname, which doesn't actually say anything in this documentation, but if you send them, it is actually going to fill out the name and surname for your user. So well, since we installed this, I think this should actually work. Let me just refresh this page just for security, and let's do something like John Doe, and the email is going to be john@smith.com, so it's going to be Smith. Okay, and the password is going to be test. Okay, and now click register. And as you can see, we get the status of 201, which means that the user is created, and we get the status text called created. Now, if we go to our backend and to users, as you can see, we now have John Smith right here. So if you watch the previous episodes, the ones that are deleted, but if you watch them, you would know that this is so much simpler than what we did. Okay, so let's try to log in our user, and we are going to go to our code editor, go to reservation, and I'm just going to paste another form right here below this one. So first of all, I'm just adding some title, which is going to say, or if you are already a user, please log in. So we want to give an option to already existing users to log in. And as you can see, this form is pretty much the similar as the one above it. We have submit prevent, and then we have this method called login user, and then we just add an email, and we are calling it login email, and we add the password, and we are calling it login password, and that's about it. We have this button right here, and that's it. Okay, so what we need to do is, of course, define login email and login users right here. Okay, so login email and login password, we need to define that. And I'm also going to copy in the login user method, because it's pretty much similar to the register user method. Actually, it's the same. We are just adding some other data to it. So we also got const user append, and then we are sending that user to the login user method in our store. So in our store.js, I'm just going to copy the register user method, paste it down here, and call it login user, and it's pretty much the same, except we are actually, it's completely the same, but we are just changing the route right here. So it's going to be API auth, not register, but login. So it's the same. Everything is the same, but I'm creating this method so that we can use it maybe later, just so that we have separate login user method and separate register user method. Okay, save this, and well, I think this could actually work. So if we go to our application, as you can see, this is our form. So, or if you're already a user, please log in, email and password. So the email is going to be john@smith.com, and the password is going to be test. And let's click login. And as you can see, we are logged in. The status is 200. But what's important here, which we are going to be using in the next episodes, is this data right here with the token, right? And you also get all of the user data. So, but this token is very important, because we need to use that token to do anything else with the user. So make the reservation in its name or in his or her name, also maybe change the user data and so on. So whatever we want to do from this point on with that user, we need to use this special token, so that the October knows that this actual user is actually doing some things on your site. Okay, so this has been it for this episode. As I said before, I'm sorry I wasted your time with the previous 2 episodes, which are now deleted, but if you watch them, you will see that this is much simpler and actually much secure way of doing login and registration. Remember, everything we did here will be available for you on GitHub. The link will be in the description below. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.